Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline Colas. I am the Health and Wellness Director of the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. We are here today to do our Lunch and Learn series with the Whole Being Institute. Our focus and topic is Learn a Compassionate Approach to Building Resilience with Ellen Feig Gray. We often equate resilience with toughness. But research in the field of positive psychology and new discoveries from the science of happiness and well-being suggest that building resilience involves a different type of strength altogether. When we allow ourselves and our children to experience a full range of human emotions, the difficult ones like fear, sadness, and frustration, as well as the positive emotions such as joy, gratitude, kindness, humor, and love, we will all be more prepared to navigate the reality of the ups and downs that life eventually and inevitably brings. Given the stresses caused by the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, along with the growing economic challenges and the raw emotions around the fight for racial justice and equality, building resilience through compassion is needed now more than ever. For us, for our kids, for ourselves, and for our future. We're joined today by Ellen Feig Gray as she outlines evidence-based tools and practices from the field of positive psychology. Ellen Feig Gray, MACIPP, CPCC, is a certified positive psychology coach, speaker, and author who specializes in helping families flourish and cultivating whole being wellness. Using a strength-based approach and drawing upon evidence-based practices from positive psychology and education, as well as the wisdom traditions, she supports parents, children, teens, and individuals in building resilience, becoming happier, and more successful. She began her career as a developmental psychology researcher and applies relevant findings to parenting and education, both inside and outside of our school system. She is the co-author of Hacking School Culture, Designing Compassionate Classrooms. Please welcome to the call, Ellen Feig. I missed one more. Gray, Ellen Feig Gray, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to the JCC of Manhattan. I feel like I'm back home. I'm originally from Brooklyn before it was cool, and have been in Miami for more than 30 years. I'm very, very appreciative, I just want to say, of all of the wonderful work that you've been doing at the JCC to bring these lunch and learns to the world and free of charge through this uncertain time. I have been a participant in many of the calls as a, sometimes just an observer, but I've watched many of my colleagues deliver wonderful presentations and have been learning a lot through you. So thank you, thank you. Thank you to the Whole Being Institute, especially to Megan McDonough and Phoebe Atkinson for coordinating with you and providing many of the speakers. There's such a rich array of knowledge and compassion in that organization. And so I thank them. And I wanted to say a special shout out to Mega of Let Your Yoga Dance fame, who I know has been a regular delivering these lunch and learns. And she told me she couldn't be on the call today, but I promised to give her a special shout out so that when she watches the recording.
Awesome.
So,
I love those special shout outs. And we are so excited that everyone is back on the Lunch and Learn series. We took a break last week. We are here again to really talk about compassion and resilience. And we were talking about your work with the schools and kids. And I was saying, yeah, we all have that inner child within us too, right? So why don't we go ahead and get started? Did you want to start with the mindfulness or end with that?
Well, okay. So how about this? Before I get to my slideshow, because my husband's always telling me that when I give these presentations, I'm a little too professorial and serious. And since one of my top strengths is humor, I'm not going to be funny now, but I'll try to interweave it when I actually get to the slides. But I'd like to invite everybody to get a little bit out of their heads and maybe into their hearts, because that's how I'd like to be with you throughout this next hour or so. Yes, I'll give you information, but I want to connect with you through our hearts. So let's settle back. It'll help me too to take a few deep breaths here. So let's settle back into our chairs wherever we are sitting and get comfortable. And if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, then do so. If not, just let them lower and have a soft gaze. And let's take a few deep breaths in and out. Inhaling and exhaling. And one more time. In and out. And as you sit quietly and breathe normally, I'd like you to get in touch with how you're feeling. How have you been feeling lately? What has your mood been? Where do you feel that in your body? Try to focus your attention on that part of your body and try to relax a little bit. Breathe through it. And imagine that you have a good friend beside you. And you're telling your friend how you feel. What do you think they would say to you to make you feel calmer, more centered? And sit with that for a moment and remember that this may be a trying time. You may be going through some difficulty and uncertainty, but that we're all in this together. And we all, everyone around the globe, is facing these same uncertainties. And remember what the friend is telling you. You'll get through this. It'll be okay. And take another deep breath. And open your eyes and come into the room and become aware of your surroundings again. Thank you, everybody, for participating and opening your hearts at the beginning of this talk. And if you'd like to type into the chat some feelings that you were experiencing, some thoughts you have about this short meditation, I'd appreciate that. And we can discuss it throughout the presentation or at the end or not. Your choice. Okay, so now I turn into a pumpkin and let's see, I'm going to figure out now how to show you my slides.
We had some shares centered and ready. Very excited to hear Ellen here. She's amazing. Missing my family in California.
Yeah, I'm missing my mom and she lives an hour away from me, and I haven't been able to see her since February. So we're all missing lots of people. I know that. Yeah.
Reminding myself to stay in the present. So wonderful to see you again. Comfort, acceptance, love. Thinking of my friends beside me made me tear up. Sure.
Yeah. Yep, tears are useful at this time. It's one of the things I'm going to emphasize today is that it's not only okay, but it's really good for us to feel all of our emotions, let them flow through us. That's a big message that we learn in positive psychology at the Whole Being Institute. And at the same time, we need to, and that's another one of the big points I want to make today, cultivate our positive emotions. And that will really build our resilience more than anything. So let them all flow through us, and we will get through this together. So can everybody see my slides? Great. Okay. So here we go. Okay. Trying to figure out how to, here we go. Okay, got it. Caroline, thank you for introducing me. As many of you know, and I see there's a lot of SIP and WBI people on the call, and positive psychology coaching people. Yay, thank you. I'm a positive psychology coach, and my focus is to apply the tools and practices of positive psychology and positive education to help families flourish. So both parents, grandparents, other family members, kids, teens, students, and everything I'm going to say today, even if I'm talking about our kids, really I'm talking about ourselves as well. Every tool and practice that I'm going to introduce to you today or remind you about, we can apply to ourselves as well as raising the next generation. And one of the things that Caroline and I were talking about before the call is you might want to imagine your inner child as I'm talking about children. I think that's a lovely, lovely image. So even though I look through the lens of kind of like a parenting or raising and educating children focus, we're talking about compassion and resilience for everyone. So I've always been motivated by trying to understand how people think, how people feel. I've had a lifetime of practice of empathy. This is just a little diagram that actually Angela Stockman, who's an educator, and I had wrote a book about compassion in the classroom, and little diagram that we came up with that teachers could use to kind of map what their students' experience is. But at its core, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And empathy is essential to practicing and cultivating compassion. The definition of compassion is the desire to help someone who is suffering or is in distress. And it's really a combination of empathy and action, taking some step to relieve their suffering. That's a lotus flower, which is kind of like the Buddhist emblem of compassion. I'd like to share with you a quote from my friend Dan Neville, who has been my acupuncturist for 30 years and healer, and he's a teacher of a modern adaptation of an ancient practice of healing that derives from ancient Chinese wisdom. I've personally been very influenced by Chinese traditional thought and other wisdom traditions. And I thought this was a lovely quote from Dan, saying that at our core, at our essence, we're programmed to be compassionate. All of us are born and wired with the capacity and the drive to sense and to connect with the embodied emotional responses of our fellow human beings. It is the force of this connection that compels us to act, to alleviate discomfort or suffering when we become aware of it in other members of our human or earth family. It is who we are at our essence. And if we weren't pre-wired this way, we couldn't take care of our young. That's really, that drive to be compassionate and to be empathetic and really helps us. Our brains release the neurotransmitters we need to care for our young, and our hormones release the oxytocin. So it keeps us all connected. So when I was co-writing the book Hacking School Culture with Angela Stockman, who's an educator, we were discussing the whole issue of compassion. Does it mean that it only means that when someone's suffering that we're going to be compassionate? And because we were talking about how compassion could be a driving force in changing the culture, transforming the culture of a classroom or an entire school, what we decided was that compassion really applies to everyone, whether or not they are suffering or whether or not they're obviously suffering. And that all of our practices really do begin with empathy, that connection to others and understanding how they're feeling. So before I get into the tools, the specifics of my presentation, and share tools and practices about how to build resilience through compassion, I want to tell you the backstory of how I got here to be able to connect compassion with resilience. So based on the book that I co-wrote, I was asked to do a TED Talk at an event that focused on the theme of resilience. So because I was invited, I was, and I really hadn't studied resilience or challenged myself to connect the concept of compassion with resilience, I had to step back. Of course, I said, yes, of course, I'll do the TED Talk. Who could pass up that opportunity? But I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? What does compassion have to do with resilience? And what kept going through my mind is, how I asked you to imagine what a good friend would say to you when you're feeling kind of maybe not so great. Well, I imagined what my son would say to me if I said, well, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to say. And my son is fully grown now, a married man, but throughout his whole life, he would say, don't worry, I'll figure it out. No matter what he was faced with, whatever challenge or setback or obstacle, he always had the attitude, don't worry, I'll figure it out. So I heard in my own imagination him saying to me, don't worry, Mom, you'll figure out what to say in your talk. And that actually inspired me to understand what resilience really is and what it means to me, which is what we all want for our kids. We want them to be able to navigate through a situation, no matter what it is, and come out stronger. So I'd like to invite you, before I go on about compassion and resilience, to type into the chat, what does resilience mean to you? And as you're doing that, I also want to share with you that I did deliver this TED Talk. It was on March 3rd in New Jersey, at the very beginning of our awareness that there was a pandemic. The examples I used were examples from our normal life in this talk. And when I flew back to Miami and we all went into lockdown, quarantine, everything got shut down, I learned that the campus where I delivered this TED Talk had been shut down. None of the faculty or staff were allowed back, and the campus had become a COVID-19 testing site. So you can't watch that TED Talk because the video has not been uploaded anywhere because the editors haven't gotten their hands on the talk, my talk, or 10 other people's talk from that day. So make sure, if you email me, I will send you the link whenever it's posted. That information is at the end. Okay.
So we have some
great
responses.
Okay, so what do we got? What does resilience mean to you?
Okay, we have the ability to bounce back from difficulties, to bounce back with grace in the face of adversity, bouncing back even stronger. We're doing a lot of bouncing back from something that you got off track, from who you truly are, how we can bounce back from adversity, getting back up after falling down, bouncing back, bringing me courage, inner strength, and the ability to face difficult times with hope. Navigating through dreaded situations and realizing I can do it without hitting rocks, building strength for next time. Durable, elastic, says Steve, having faith and going forward regardless of challenges. Ability to face and be proactive whatever comes up, redirecting my mind. The ability to keep looking for the light no matter how hard things get. Using my character strengths to not survive, but to bounce back and maybe flourish. Making lemonade from a lemon, refusing to give in to the toxic folks around us. And I think that's what we've got. Beautiful.
I love all those answers. I think that all of you have definitely been on these calls before. There's a lot of positive psychology phrases that people are using. There's a lot of, strengths language, and you're way ahead of most people in terms of what you think resilience is. And it does my heart good to know that you're all building your resilience by redefining resilience as coming out stronger. So let me just share with you the dictionary definition of resilience. Talks about the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. And it also talks about toughness, which I'll get to in a minute. The more psychological definition really frames resilience more as a process of adaptation and being able to come out stronger, or perhaps even growing personally from navigating through trauma, tragedy, threats, significant stress, like health problems, workplace financial stressors, relationship problems. Really what most of us are facing now, one or more of those stressors, I would say. The phrase bouncing back, I'm still I struggle with that because I don't think we really go back, especially during this time, this extended time of the pandemic, because we are really creating and co-creating a new normal. So we're building our resilience through this time, and so there's really no going back, folks. We're different, and we'll always be different. Okay, so thank you, Caroline, for spotlighting me, and because we don't need to see a whole bunch of words the whole time. I appreciate it. Okay. So let's go on. Okay, so let's go to this toughness definition, because a lot of people do think that in order to become resilient, whether it's us or raising our kids, that we need to toughen up or toughen our kids up, that they need to, like bodybuilders, toughen themselves up and build their strength with grit and come out the other side with tougher shell, a harder exterior. And that's not really what resilience is. And we know from the science of happiness and research in the field of positive emotions that resilience really requires a different type of strengthening. I like to think of building resilience like a dancer rather than a bodybuilder. And I know, Caroline, you could relate to this because we love to dance, and there are a lot of dancers out there as well. So the type of strengthening really has to do with cultivating our agility as well as cultivating our store of positive emotions. And that's more constructive in building resilience than thinking that we've got to be tough and not feel our emotions. So picture emotions. Tal Ben-Shahar, one of our positive psychology teachers, used to talk about emotions as rivers. So picture an emotion as a stream where there might be rocks and stones and turns along the way, but if we feel all of our emotions, allow ourselves to feel the difficult emotions like sadness, grief, fear, uncertainty, frustration, as well as cultivating our positive emotions like love and hope and gratitude and compassion, that we could have a steady stream flowing of emotions and become more resilient. And perhaps even, rather than bouncing back, transcend our obstacles, or at least feel like we are kind of leaping over our challenges, like graceful dancers. So it's really a combination of, yes, we need some grit, but really more grace than grit. So here we go to the academic stuff. So we know from research that our pro-social emotions can be cultivated through practice. Even though we're born wired for these positive emotions and and especially empathy and compassion, we need to cultivate them on an ongoing basis in order to build our inner strength or reserves. David DeSteno has some wonderful research in his book, Emotional Success, that really talks about how gratitude, compassion, and pride are powerful emotions that we can cultivate that contribute to our resilience and help us meet our goals of overcoming obstacles. Okay. And we know from our dear Barbara Fredrickson at University of North Carolina and her lab that her brought in and build theory says that resilience is an inner resource that we can grow over time through cultivating our positive emotions. And what I don't have in this slide is her upward spiral concept, which is that the more positive emotions you experience, the more positive emotions you experience in that upward spiral. So when we cultivate love or gratitude, compassion, we're going to feel more of it. Okay, so what does all of this mean for us? How can we take a compassionate approach to build our own resilience and to help facilitate the resilience building of our kids and the next generation or our inner children? So again, what I'm going to present and the examples I'm going to use, most of them will be talking about how to help our kids build their resilience, but all of the tools and practices that I am introducing here, we can apply to ourselves, and we should. And so keep in mind, as I go through these, how you are, or how might you use these tools and practices during this uncertain and anxious time. And I'll ask you to type those into the chat box as we go. Thank you, Caroline, for monitoring. Okay. So one of the best ways, I think, to take a compassionate approach to building resilience is to celebrate, appreciate, and savor our small wins. Scientists Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer call this the progress principle. What we mean by small wins are the seemingly insignificant but important steps to overcoming obstacles. And when we celebrate, appreciate, and savor our small wins, we increase our positivity, we feel joy, we feel pride, we feel satisfied, the satisfaction of accomplishment, we feel more motivated, and we keep on going. If you've ever watched a baby learn to walk, you know what I mean. The baby pulls herself up and starts to take a couple of steps, letting go, and then flops down. And all of the adults who are in the room are celebrating, yay, the baby's walking. And the baby herself is smiling, feels so proud, look what she did. We don't wait for her to get up and solidly walk across the room to the other end before we celebrate. We celebrate her small wins. What small wins in your life have you been celebrating? Either your own small wins or your family's, your quarantine partner's small wins, your kids, your students' small wins. What have you been appreciating, celebrating, and savoring these past few months? Type those into the chat, if you will, as I go on. So when we show our kids that we believe in them, it helps them to come to believe in themselves and know what they can accomplish. And that builds their resilience. They're building their resources of positivity, of positive emotions that they can then draw upon when they face future challenges to overcome those obstacles. Anything, Caroline, in terms of small wins?
We've got a few. Being alone and finding small wins. My grandchildren, I'm grateful for, let's see, my grandchildren, a couple things. A couple folks said, oh, it's popping up a lot, so hang on one sec.
Woo!
All right, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Students, adaptability, be grateful for the small things that I had taken for granted, being able to be alone and finding small wins. My grandchildren learning to play the ukulele and cook. Wow, Sin, that's great. Growing my own salad from seeds, cooking healthy and delicious meals at home. Form of exercise, movement each day. My husband getting 2 weeks work after 4 months of nothing. Yeah. Enjoying coaching a student and seeing her grow, getting blogs onto LinkedIn. Wow, that's a nice success. Finding a small, calm space within myself through meditation and connecting to loved ones. Decluttering. Oh, that's a good one. I think I should take that one on. Still healthy as ever. That's great. Slowing down to go fast. Successfully changing tube in my bicycle tire after participating in Zoom webinar. Wow, Steve, I can't do that. I want that skill. Being more in the moment and not so rushed and busy. Rhoda, And I think I need that one too. The ability to adapt to new classes on Zoom. Yep. Joining the Walking Ed and Walking Every Day. Reestablishing contact with old friends and relatives all over the world, playing the piano after decades, just being very thankful. Beautiful, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing your small wins. A lot of those sounded like big wins to me. And so I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to celebrate, appreciate, and savor those things with you. Then we know that savoring goes a long way towards our happiness and resilience. Another way that we can take a compassionate approach to helping our kids become resilient is to practice empathy and really to understand who they are, who they really are, and not assume that they're just mini-me's because they may dress like us or act like us or follow our mannerisms or follow us around. They're unique individuals that we really need to get to know. And that goes for our partners, our co-workers, our friends, our loved ones, really, and get to know ourselves too. That's, a really, really important way to build our resilience, our store of positivity. Really ask ourselves, who is my child? Not just what they can do well or how their grades in school and how well they do on the SAT, but who they are, what lights them up, whether it's, I think that's kissing a rooster. I thought that was a really cool slide. Whether they love animals or love science experiments or playing music or playing soccer or finger painting themselves, what really lights them up? What lights us up? And that brings me to character strengths. I know a lot of you have learned a lot about the VIA character strengths through these talks. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go to viacharacter.org. I've put that link in a PDF file that we're going to provide for you, and learn what your top strengths are. And give the free survey to your kids too, and find out what their strengths are, what their top strengths are. Caroline and I were sharing before the call, her top strength is creativity. Mine is love and gratitude. Those are my top two. Have a little humor thrown in there, so just wait. And so maybe your child's top strength is zest, like the girl here who's painted herself, or curiosity, like the boy who's looking into the telescope, or the girl who's got the oops, that was a little preview of my humor. Or the girl who's got the hat. Maybe her top strength is appreciation of beauty and excellence. Humor, the girl with the pink hair and the nose. Or maybe it's love, like mine, the little girl kissing her mommy's pregnant belly. Or the boy who's just so enthralled with his learning through book that he is, who knows what he's just learned from that book, but he certainly loves to learn.
I just had everyone put, if they know their top strengths, they can put them in the chat so we can
Great.
see what we've got on the call.
Yeah.
So that's always kind of fun to know
It
too.
is kind of fun. And often what we are finding is that there's a lot of commonality in the top strengths of a group when they self-select for a certain workshop or seminar. So very often we never see, or very seldom we see, self-regulation as a top strength. So just putting that out. So if anybody has self-regulation as a top strength, I want to meet you. Okay. So, so when we spot our own strengths and our kids or our loved ones' signature strengths, we are actually helping them build resilience. We're taking a compassionate approach to their self-concept, developing an idea of who they are, what their capability is, and building their resilience through this compassionate approach. And in doing that, in spotting our kids' strengths, what we're also doing is giving them the confidence to know that they have already within them the strengths that they need to navigate through any situation. What would be interesting now is to hear from you through the chat. What strengths have you been using during the past few months, and what strengths have you been cultivating and expect to use through these next few months to get through this uncertain time? What are those top strengths? I know for me, it's been love of learning, which is not even one of my top 5, but it's one of my top 10. I've been learning a lot through the JCC, the Holding Institute, taking all kinds of Zoom classes. I've been, building my resilience that way. And also we were talking about through humor. I am just craving and binging anything funny I can watch or read. So that is cultivating my strength of resilience, my strength of humor, and building my resilience.
Well, certainly for me, creativity has been quite useful. Curiosity is another one of my top strengths. So being curious about what we can do next, what we can, even on the lunch and learns, what topics we can have, and then love and kindness. And I see a lot of love and kindness and social intelligence, humor, looking at beautiful art in museums all over the world, looking at pictures of sunsets and sunrises, gorgeous. Writing, art, music, connecting with friends, growing creativity and curiosity, gratitude, appreciation of beauty, kindness, gratitude, appreciating the beauty, a lot of gratitude, patience, love of learning, making connections, patience and learning something new every day, gratitude and love of learning, gratitude and love of learning, zest and humor. Great.
Great. Thank you everyone for sharing that. Yes, we need to really harness those character strengths to get through this time and through the new normal times. The example I always use about shifting our focus to our kids' signature strengths is through one of my clients that I coached who was struggling with their son who was not getting good grades in school, who was having all kinds of difficulty. They were constantly fighting. He was trying. They got him special tutoring and specialists for his learning disability, but he was resisting all of that help. And he basically said to them, "I'm not you." They were highly educated, highly accomplished parents, like many of us. And when he said to them, "I'm not you," they shifted their focus to really figure out who he was. He was very creative, he was charming, he loved teamwork, he loved sports, and they helped him see himself in a different light. This is not him who you're seeing here, but this is another one of my clients' kids who actually gave me permission to show his likeness on this slide. No, kidding. Okay, so and eventually that young man started to shift his focus in how he saw himself and began to buckle down, take advantage of the tutoring, and he became very successful. He's now actually on a baseball scholarship to a college that suits his needs and interests, doing very well academically. And we think it's all through shifting the family's focus and his confidence through strength spotting, and he's becoming a positive psychologist, ironically enough, and hopes to resume playing baseball when college sports start up again. And so another tool we could use in taking a compassionate approach to building resilience is to reframe in a positive way, turn our challenges into opportunities. Here you see a messy desk. This is reflective of an example of a teen who went to an after-school youth program and cried to the director that she had been diagnosed with ADD. And the director said to her, well, join the club. And the girl said, well, what club? And the director said, the ADD club, Alpha, Delta, Delta. And they both had a good laugh about that. And then she invited this girl to figure out a way that she could organize herself to actually get more done in one day than most people. So turn her challenge into an opportunity. It turned out that girl did find her own system and got to accomplish a lot when she got organized and supported through her system. And she's now doing very well today and loving who she is. And finally, coming back to what we did at the beginning of the session, which was to get in touch with our own feelings and practice a little self-compassion, we really do, especially now, need to practice and model self-compassion for ourselves and for others around us. That means, as Kristin Neff, our queen of self-compassion, says, being mindful about how we're feeling, treating ourselves with the kindness we would treat a good friend, which is why I had you imagine your friend sitting next to you to tell you it's okay, or whatever you need to hear. And also recognizing that everyone is feeling the emotions that you're feeling now during these uncertain times. And Kristin Neff calls that common humanity. And when we cultivate our self-compassion, we are becoming more compassionate for others. It even has health benefits. And it reduces our feelings of overwhelm, which I know I've been feeling a lot lately. Replenishes our resources, and especially for parents and for teachers in the classroom, self-compassion can prevent burnout. Because when we practice self-compassion and self-care, we are taking care of ourselves in the ways that we need and recharging ourselves. And we're even less likely to say things, which we all sometimes do when we feel overwhelmed, that may not be so kind, that may shame or blame someone else. So we're more mindful as well when we're self-compassionate, as well as being compassionate to others. So do we have time for another, well, maybe, another little meditation? We might, unless anyone wants to ask some questions now, burning questions, because we have, what, like about 10 more minutes?
Yeah, I think it might be interesting to ask some questions.
Okay.
Now that we all have kind of a context of
Yeah.
what to...
Yeah, before
you're talking about, resilience and compassion. So we were talking earlier before the call began, Ellen, about compassion and problem solving, and how this time period, and I was mentioning for me, and I don't know if it's true for anybody else on the call, but it just seems like there is no let up from the problem solving that has to occur. And how do we relate to compassion, resilience, or building our resilience, in that this is really not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Right.
And you guys are going in Miami, like New York, we sort of went through our peak, and now you're at peak right now. And so what's happening is different parts of the country are peaking differently. And that's since we're all interconnected. And
Yeah.
like, for example, I'm hoping to travel, it's summertime, I'm hoping to travel, but as different parts of the country peak, that doesn't seem like possible. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the relationship between problem solving and resilience. And we can actually take this down so we can see you if you want.
Okay. So you want me to stop screen sharing
Yeah.
now? Okay.
So we can just have a conversation.
Okay. So I think about it in terms of context. I think that they're building our resilience and cultivating our compassion and taking a compassionate approach to building our resilience through these various tools and practices is a lifetime endeavor, really. We're, regardless of what we're facing, what context we're in, whether we're at home, at school, at work, we in our lives need to always be mindful of our emotions, what we need, practice self-compassion, cultivate compassion for others. And it's a journey and it's a process, and there will be peaks and valleys, and we need to always accept that. And at the same time, allow ourselves to experience all of the emotions: fear, uncertainty, frustration, sadness, grief, because they are normal. We know when we suppress our emotions or repress them, they show their ugly heads at some point and either make us sick physically or emotionally. So we should let them flow through us. But at the same time, we have to be always proactive in cultivating our pro-social emotions: love, gratitude, kindness, awe, and compassion, because that really is the store of resources that we will always want to draw upon in order to become more and more resilient and face our
Are you in
problems.
essence talking about competing truths? In other words, if I'm supposed to be experiencing and letting, as Tal Ben-Shahar says, the rivers run of grief and sadness and fear and anger and that kind of stuff, but am I also at the same time supposed to be cultivating my positive emotions? Because they're like a wave, aren't they?
Yeah.
We've talked about, the limbic system being hijacked before. We've talked about moderation. We've talked about mindfulness to be able to sort of observe oneself so that we know that we aren't that we are feeling, right? We don't identify with what we're feeling so that we have some objectivity. But we also know that what happens is we can get swept away by them. So it feels to me like we're talking about some competing truths here. In one way, it's like, okay, we have to know that there's this ocean of emotion that we're going to experience. And then we're going to know, and we all experience it differently because of our own neurobiology, right? So
Right.
some people are more feeling centered than others.
Right.
And they will feel things more template, even depending on their strengths, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to moderate that emotion ocean. Or are you suggesting we moderate that emotion with our positive strengths and with
Yeah.
our positive emotions?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Habit creating, we've talked a lot in positive psychology about creating habits. And if we can figure out what works for us in terms of cultivating our positive emotions and make them habits, regardless of the turbulent ocean feelings that we might experience, and we can draw upon the habits that we've created for ourselves. For example, meditation's one of them. Dancing is another. Listening to music, walking, doing yoga, cooking, whatever brings you joy and pleasure and pride and gratitude. those are the things that we should practice on a regular basis. And also, you're right, they are individual, and they may, what works in one situation or one context may not work in another. So if you were a regular meditator, for example, before this pandemic, and you just can't get into it now, it's not working for you, you need to find something else that is, more helpful to you. It's interesting, like I always had problems with meditation, and I became a habitual meditator through this time because I started to go on the 10% Happier app. Dan Harris, who's the newscaster from ABC, created an app called 10% Happier, and also a website. And during your New York lockdown, he and many meditators, meditation teachers were offering free meditations at 3 p.m. every day. And that really, really helped me. I went on the entire time. Now I bought the app and I do it, when I can in the mornings as well. So, we need to kind of like monitor what's working for us, but always be active in incorporating these cultivation of pro-social emotions in our lives, our joy, our happiness.
Yeah, and I also want to recognize some of the things that there's a discussion in the chat that's going on about the other side of human nature, which we really do need to talk about. We are all in this together. We all do have pro-social tendencies, and we also have, as part of our nature, that status and the negativity bias. And then
Right.
we even have some people, for example, which seems to me, outrageous, coughing on babies, coughing on not wearing masks, doing things that are destructive. So the question is, what do we do with that part of human nature? And one of the things, and I wonder if you have something to talk about that, because we see that in kids a lot, right? We see the status, we see the competing for territory, we see that there is a part of human nature that is aggressive. There is a part of human nature that is, what do I want to say, difficult. If we even look at the animal kingdom, right? There's that part of us. I'm seeing some people nod, right?
Yeah.
And we are animals. And so again, it would seem to me like what you're talking about is resilience, is to not have this expectation that to look at it from a positive psychology standpoint squarely in the eye, to see that that's part of the reality, and to also choose what is our strategy back to problem solving in that event.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And before I address that, I saw some chat comments come up. Somebody said, I feel so troubled inside. I want to say that so do I. I know many of us are feeling very troubled by this whole situation, by seeing the news, people spitting in each other's faces, coughing and on babies. It's outrageous. These people obviously are not being compassionate to other people and not practicing empathy. The great Buddhist teachers encourage us to be compassionate toward everyone, even the people who are not compassionate to other people. That's true compassion. I'm not there yet. But I want to say that in my own experience, I'm wired anxious. So that's kind of like how I go through life. And I try to control my anxiety through whatever practices that I choose that cultivate my positive emotions. But one of the things that I've really gotten in touch with right now, and I shared this with you, Caroline, earlier, is that I have been feeling anxious, depressed, sad, joyful, fearful, hopeful, and all at the same time. That you know, and I kind of described to you as if we were to talk about it as a play. Act one, backdrop, anxiety, fear, depression. Actors are, you know, are having a funny conversation, are having a happy time. So it's not like I'm pretending to be happy or feel the joy. I am, but I feel the trouble feeling inside at the same time. And so back to your context, you know, everybody's kind of like going through this in waves. We will experience this all in waves at the same time. The best thing we can do for ourselves is to give ourselves, as Tal says, permission to be human, and also to reach out to one another. I know a lot of people are very isolated right now. And besides reminding ourselves that we need to be mindful of our own emotions, and that cultivate our self-compassion and our compassion, but also reach out to other people and support one another. It's so very important right now.
Oh, Ellen, we could go on and on. I can't believe
We
we're
can.
at time.
Oh.
And some don't overguess every issue. Just be aware. And I know some people asked, oh, why we didn't call on them. And again, it's just time. I'm happy to call on folks. It's just the amount of time we had. I did want to let everybody know what we have. Some programs coming up. We have to again help you through this time. They're helpful for me. One of the things is that we've been sitting a lot. I know I have. And if anyone's back has been bothering them, we have a program tonight called Alexander Technique to reduce lower back pain. For those of us in the cancer care program, there's a Qigong program happening this weekend. We also have something that I think is really amazing that I'm going to put in the chat. It's called forest bathing. Have you ever done that, Ellen?
No, but I've heard about it and it sounds great.
Right. And then, thank goodness, my dear friend Morgan Ryson, who is an amazing Alexander Technique teacher, is going to come back again, and she is doing a workshop on how to relieve shoulder and neck strain when you're on Zoom. And boy, do I need that one. I've asked her to do that once a month because it's such a challenge for so many of us. Let's see if that one goes in the chat. Okay. And then finally, you know, peaceful and centered and balanced during these stressful times. And anybody else need that? I need that too.
We need everything. We need everything, right?
One of your strengths, I know, is laughter. And we have somebody coming to do some laughter yoga. So you guys, we are doing the very best we can at the JCC to give you some options that are inexpensive, if not free, to talk about ways to build resilience and compassion. I thank Ellen so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Can I just put up my slide of how
Sure, of course. Yes.
In touch with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And while I also say what I didn't get to was, yes, we should make people feel loved today and always. This is how you can get in touch with me. Follow me on whatever social media. But, and check out Loving Kindness Meditation. If you haven't done this yet, there are resources that you'll be receiving through PDF. The link is there, that have links to some loving kindness meditation resources, which actually in traditional Buddhist meditation is the meditation practice that was designed to end suffering. So, and there's been a lot of research around it to show that it does really help in cultivating compassion.
Yeah,
so,
and Barbara Fredrickson's work was done with the loving kindness meditation. So you guys, we are a little bit over. I apologize for going over, but Ellen, we just had so much to share. So I thank you so much again. Can they have your slides with them with the recording?
Absolutely. You can share the PDF, and there are links to resources in that PDF. So um, it's been so wonderful to be with you all today. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone, and have a compassionate time and build your resilience.
We'll see you next week for Lunch and Learns, or perhaps tonight on our Alexander Technique for Back Health class. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Bye-bye.